everyone. Welcome to another episode of Inside the Sciences. I am Sheena Berhal. I am your host. And in this episode, we are going to talk about airflow and ventilation containment systems. Now, in pharmaceutical and biopharmaceutical manufacturing industries, handling of potent and highly potent active pharmaceutical ingredients has actually become a norm. Now, what makes it even more critical is the fact that even the smallest amounts of these compounds can actually pose risks to workers and to the products alike. That is why containment in these industries is not just a nice to have, but actually a must have, right? So we have airflow and ventilation-based containment systems like downflow booths and ventilated balance enclosures that create an invisible protection so that the workers could be protected, the integrity of the products would be preserved, and ultimately the whole industry is actually protected. Now, in this episode, we are going to put a spotlight on how these or what the advantages of open containment systems are. And we are joined today by Shayla Monique Arauf, a product management executive here at Esco, to walk us through how airflow and ventilation containment systems work, how or why occupational exposure limits are quite important, and basically how these barriers work together so that workers are protected, the products are protected, and ultimately the industry is protected. Hi, Sheila. Welcome to Inside the Sciences. Thank you for being with us today.
Hello, Sheena. Thank you for having me. And I am here as a product management executive for Esco. And in this episode, I would like to share more, maybe a little bit about my knowledge for containment strategy or even the engineering control that is used in containment strategy of APIs or HPAPIs.
All right. So I'm actually quite excited with this podcast in this episode. All right. So I think we should start with the basics. So I've mentioned earlier about active pharmaceutical ingredients, and they're potent and there are highly potent active pharmaceutical ingredients, right? So can you tell us what makes these compounds, why do they need stricter containment systems?
Okay, so APIs or HPAPIs stands for active pharmaceutical ingredients, which means they are pharmacologically active substance and they do have a biological effects in humans. So even like a tiniest amount that gets inhaled will have an effect on you. And if this goes to the wrong person, such as the operators, the APIs is maybe not intended for the operators. It's more intended to the patients that has the sickness. So if you as an operator have some accidental inhalation or dermal exposure, this may cause some significant health effects on yourself. So usually APIs and HPAPIs is rated by the regulatory toxicology by OEL, which stands for Occupational Exposure Limit. And regulatory bodies will rate this based on their toxicity and also their potency. For example, the HPAPI can have an OEL below 1 microgram per cubic meter of air. So you can see how much it should be contained inside the working area. So the functions of having the strict containment measures is due to that reason, because they're most likely highly potent and also most likely highly toxic as well. Okay, so the containment equipment has to be validated in order to be the operator should be protected against that OEL. So in pharma industry standard, we have a testing protocol that is called SMEPAC. SMEPAC is a standardized methodology to make sure that the particle concentration stays below that threshold, stays below that OEL limit that we are talking about. So when we compare APIs and HPAPIs, really to inert powders.
Mm-hmm.
Inert powders is most used like talc or flowers.
Yeah.
It does not have any effect when you maybe accidentally inhale it, but maybe you may be coughing a
Yeah,
bit
yeah.
when it
Mm-hmm.
gets a bit dusty,
Mm-hmm.
but it does not have significant health effects. So I would say an example of this is like the paracetamol that we take when we have headache.
Yeah.
I believe they have like the taken by a human adult would be around 500 milligrams,
Milligrams. Yeah.
and it does not require like such a strict measurement to compound paracetamol. Maybe only basic PPE with gloves and mask and a good ventilated room.
Yeah.
So in comparison to a chemotherapy drug, this would require a much stricter containment due to it having like less than 1 milligrams. So 1 milligrams would imagine how you would be as an operator. You don't want to be exposed to even a milligram of this type of drug. So yeah, this is why we
Yeah.
require strict.
Since we're talking about, smallest amount, so can you tell us what can happen to the operator if in case the operator is exposed to even the smallest amount of HP APIs?
Even an exposure to a trace amount of HPAPI can leave an unintended pharmaceutical or toxicology effects. So because these compounds are active at the microgram and even the nanogram level, so really depending on the APIs or HPAPIs that we are handling, some operators, if they accidentally get exposed, they may experience dizziness, nausea, some respiratory irritation, and even organ toxicity. So you can see how dangerous it is if you don't have a good containment system to handle this. And another thing is if we are handling a cytotoxic HPAPI, accidental exposure may have a damage on your rapidly dividing cells and leading to really severe side effects. So, and when we are talking about big pharma, we as an operator, you go there as a 9 to 5. You may be exposed to these powders daily. So a routine exposure, and if it's not correct containment, this may cause a long-term toxicity such as immunosuppressant or reproductive toxicity, and also an increase in cancer risk. So really depending on their potency and also how one can tolerate. I think all of us humans are different. So one may not be able to tolerate and one may be just fine being exposed to. So actually still having that containment is a non-negotiables. We don't want any
those things that you mentioned, they are really quite scary. So there's really a need for containment. So speaking of this, like possible effects to operators, how do companies ensure that their workers remain safe from these individual risks?
Okay.
Or invisible risks?
Oh yeah. So actually companies normally they would implement a layered containment and safety strategy. So what this strategy includes, it would include an engineering controls, administrative measures, and also the personnel protection. So since HPI is invisible and really hard, is very small, and we cannot trace it. A risk-based approach would be necessary in this case. So risk can be different from case to case, and this would depend on how much powder is handled, what is the duration of the task, how dangerous the powders that you're handling, and what is the dustiness, how dustiness can the powder get. Measurement that we would take would be the use of primary barriers such
Yeah.
as isolators or the ventilated balance enclosure or the downflow boots to ensure that the airborne concentration is below the OEL level. So really a closed transfer system, and using a efficient filter such as a HEPA filter or a OLPA filter, make sure that this filters to capture particulate matter before it can even enter that workspace. And also they would also do some, as I said, the validated testing, the SMAPAC, and also maybe a visualization with the smoke test of how the airflow is going into the work zone. So all in all, usually an engineering control such as isolator, the ventilated balance enclosure, or the downflow boots is not really a magic box that works just magically without any SOPs for your operators. So the importance of worker training, the SOP for material transfer, and also how to clean it, and like the controlled access zones this is really to avoid accidental exposure of the API and the HPAPI. And one of the programs that they would do is also the health surveillance program to monitor their operator and to really check early signs of unintended exposure. And the next type of safety is also the personal protection equipment, which is like the Tyvek suits, double gloving, or even respirators. So these are the items that companies would try to maintain to keep safe of their operator.
All right, very well. All right, so can you share like a simple analogy that makes, this invisible risk that you're talking about more relatable, particularly to non-scientists?
So to non-scientists, I would explain handling HPAPI is like handling toxic mold spores in your house. You might not see it, you might not even smell it, but even inhaling it would make you very, very sick. So this is why professionals use protective gear. They would seal their rooms, and they would use special filters. So just because the mold spores are not visible, so the dangerous risk is really there. It's real. This is how I would explain.
Okay, and that's actually very difficult if you're fighting something that you can't see, right? So that's why in these industries, containment systems are really quite important. Okay, so let's now proceed with the technical backbone of containment. So you've mentioned earlier about occupational exposure limits. So can you tell us what exactly is OEL and why is it important?
Okay, so OEL, which stands for Occupational Exposure Limit, it is a scientifically derived value that indicates the maximum airborne concentration of a substance. We are talking about APIs and HPAPI now. And so this is the maximum airborne concentration of a substance to which a worker can be exposed over a defined period of time without any adverse health effects. So typically it would be 8 hours, because we do work for 8 hours per day normally. So OELs are really critical in the pharmaceutical manufacturing because they're the basis on how to design containment system, and also what is the protective measures that we should take in order to protect our operator from that HPAPI. When we determine an OEL, it typically involves a toxicological evaluation. So we include data from the NOAEL, no observed adverse effect level data from animal or human studies, and we are applying the safety factors of it. So OEL, and then we'll inform the OEB, which is occupational exposure ban, which categorize the compounds
Yeah.
by the potency. So this is used as a guide containment levels and the facility designs. So if when maybe a pharmaceutical manufacturing industry are researching about a new medicine, and the OEL hasn't been established yet, and this will be using other approach such as the derived exposure limits, which can be used for the risk assessment of the OEL that hasn't been set yet. So really, regulatory bodies will provide guidance, methodology, and also recommend exposure limits for handling the APIs or HPAPIs. And together, these tools will ensure that the engineering controls, the administrative measurements, and the PPE are appropriately designed to contain the powders and to minimize the exposure of it to workers. Yeah.
All right. Okay. And since in relation to OEL, so there is what we call the OEL guidelines, right? So how do airflow and ventilation containment systems help minimize the risk, the operator's exposure to hazardous powders, and support compliance, particularly to this OEL guidelines?
Airflow containment system and ventilated containment system really help to minimize exposure to these type of hazardous powders. So by creating a controlled airflow that sweeps the particles away from the operator and towards an exhaust, this exhausted air would also have to be filtered out by high efficiency filters. So this localized airflow will ensure that the powders remain confined in that workspace, so it does not also escape the external environment. So by maintaining that concentration below the OEL limit, these containment systems are really part of a critical safety strategy.
Yeah.
And also of course including the administrative controls and also the SOP and the PPE. And maybe there are some cases where when we are handling an OEL, a powder that is like less than 1 microgram, specifically HPAPIs, would require a closed system, and this is most likely isolator, which categorizes into an isolator. And this type of stricter standard is really depending on what type of powders you're handling during your in that manufacturing stage. The airflow and ventilated containment system also depends on the powders that you handle. So this OEL will help to determine what type of equipment that can be used for your process.
Yeah, okay. That sounds logical, And my next question to you is, what if, for example, there are regulators and they're looking for, they need to approve a pharmaceutical site's containment system. What do they usually look for?
Okay, so when regulator they're trying to approve a pharmaceutical site containment system, they would look at how the facility protects the operators, how it maintains the product integrity, and they would make sure that there is no cross-contamination between the rooms, and also they would ensure compliance with the established OEL.
Yeah.
So they would evaluate whether the engineering controls have been properly designed, tested, and also validated to demonstrate that airborne concentration remain below the safe levels, using, as I said, SMEPAC and also the visualization test with the smoke. study, and then they would also look at the risk-based approach that we have defined,
Yeah.
taking account into the potency of the APIs
Mm-hmm.
and also what are the tasks that is being done inside that work zone. And they would also look at the potential exposure routes and how it is supported by the appropriate containment equipment, the PPE, and also the administrative controls. So really compliance with the regulatory requirements will be reviewed through a series of strict documentation of design, SOP, maintenance, and also the training of your operator as well.
Yeah.
So, and another thing that they would look at is the ongoing monitoring of the airflow.
Mm-hmm.
They would look at how much your filter is loaded over time. So they would monitor the pressure differential between filters, and also the filter integrity is assessed to ensure that the containment system continuously protects the operator. So all in all, the regulators would review the sites using a validated containment system,
Mm-hmm.
risk-based safety measures, and also the continuous protection for both operators and the product quality.
All right. Okay. So now let's talk about Esco's product line. So we have the downflow boots, and then we also have the ventilated balance enclosures, right?
Mhm.
So these are for airflow and ventilation. These are airflow and ventilation containment systems. But can you tell us first what exactly is airflow and containment, or airflow and ventilation containment, and how is it different than just a simple, say, good ventilation?
Airflow and ventilation containment are engineering strategy that is used in pharmaceutical manufacturing
Yeah.
to control that exposure of hazardous powders. So, I would say an example of a product in the airflow containment is the downflow boots. So, what the downflow boots creates is a unidirectional downflow of air
Mm-hmm.
over the work zone, and then you as an operator, you're working in that area.
Yeah.
The air gets pushed down, and then it gets into the rear back wall to be swept away and exhausted out as well. So if you visualize a downflow booth would be as big as a room. It can be up to 2.5 meters with like 2 meters wide normally. So the type of work that you do in the downflow booth is like powder weighing with drums of APIs. This could be one of the applications of the downflow booth. So the goal of the downflow booth is to contain that contaminants within a specific work zone, and to prevent it from really escaping into the room. In contrast, VBE, ventilated balance enclosure, uses a ventilated airflow that it extracts air from the room, from your backside, and then it will go into the rear wall. So it does not have the downflow. The difference is the downflow for the downflow booth, and for the VBE is really it extracts from the room like so. So VBE is a tabletop solution, is more for a precision task, like you're just having an analytical task for a hazardous powders. So VBE has that type of usage. But when we compare these two solutions to an ordinary ventilated, just having a good ventilated room, good ventilated room does not make sure that airborne concentration is well kept below the OEL that have been set. So really the airflow and the ventilated containment equipments would make sure that the work zone is localized, it is controlled, and it is also validated and designed to meet that to both protect the operators and maybe as well the products. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So this really emphasizes the importance of OEL, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So my next question would be about the downflow boots. You mentioned earlier about powders, handling powders.
Mhm.
So how does downflow boots actually uh, protect operators that are handling, say, large scale powders?
Okay, so yeah, as I said previously, downflow boots protects the operators handling large-scale powders by creating this controlled unidirectional airflow that sweeps the airborne particles down from the operator, and then it goes towards the HEPA filtered exhaust. And this prevents the hazardous powders from leaving the work zone and
Mm,
entering the breathing space of the operator.
operator.
So you can see it going down and then goes up. But of course, uh, as I said, the SOP also matters. So
Yeah.
you can't, as an operator, you can't be like going down towards
Yeah.
the room. You have to have a maintain posture.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is really the downflow boots creates this laminar downward of clean air, and then it gets exhausted out. So any dust or powders that is released during weighing, mixing, or even transferring is immediately carried down and away from the operator. So the downflow boot ensures that even fine and respirable particles do not escape that downflow boot,
Mm-hmm.
and keeping the exposure below the OEL level
OEL.
that has been set. So when you are handling, especially when you're handling large scale powders, quantity and also the potential of the airborne dust is much higher. This is why the downflow boost is suitable for this type of operation. And
Okay.
the downflow boot is actually really, you can set it up in a millions of configurations.
Mm-hmm.
So pharmaceutical manufacturing companies, it would be really depending on what type of process they're doing inside the downflow booth. It can be just weighing. It can be they could even have this case where, oh, we are doing just R&D
Mm-hmm.
on if we are making this type of medicine, we're just doing a simulation of how are we going to make this type of medicine. So um, it can have many usage as well. So, but most
Mm.
likely it is in the manufacturing or the production type of equipment. So
All
yeah.
right. Okay. And then earlier on, you also mentioned about ventilated balance enclosures and how they are more suitable for precision tasks. So can you tell us more why that is the case?
Okay, so ventilated balance enclosure is a tabletop solution, and it is with the sash. So it is more suitable for precision tasks because it combines a containment barrier, having a barrier, controlled airflow, and also a stable working environment.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is essential when we are working with highly potent powders, because uh, precision task is, we are manipulating powders that is at microgram or even nanogram level
Level.
weighing. So it really, the airflow that the VBE creates, it minimizes the disturbance of fine powders, which is critical when we are having an accurate measurements. And VBE can also be equipped with the granite worktop, which dampens
Mm-hmm.
vibration. It will
Mm-hmm.
ensure that there no extra vibration caused in the worktop. And um, considering that we are talking about the microgram levels,
Mm-hmm.
so granite worktop could also work for
Mm-hmm.
in case you require as well. And VBE is an open system, so only it can only accommodate a small batch of weighing, typically for the precision task. And even if you want to weigh powders that is you're using a weighing balance that is sensitive to four decimal places. So it's like sensitive to 0.00001 grams. So this type of configuration can also be used in a VBE where we separate the fan from the enclosure, and it is to like a portable box. So this will make sure that the vibration is not too much, and because we are using a sensitive weighing balance. So we actually do come across cases like that, and companies will purchase this type of solution. And then the VBE overall, it's the combination of the controlled containment, the airflow management, and also the stability that the VBE can offer, which makes it really versatile for precision tasks and other sensitive tasks that may be done inside the.
Okay, now I get it. I understand now why VBE is more suitable for precision task and why downflow boots, they're more like suitable for large scale powders, right? For example. All right. So for my last question to you, if you're going to explain all of these things to students, what real world application or comparison would you use?
Okay, so the downflow boots, I would compare it as if you're sitting at the end of the waterfall. So imagine standing under a gentle waterfall that pushes everything down that is floating, and then anything that might be anything that might be harmful in your environment will be swept away through that clean waterfall. So so you as an operator, you stay dry from any dust or any hazardous powders. So this is in case of the VBE. The downflow boots. And then the VBE, since it is, I would say, is as if you are playing with sand inside a small box. But imagine if that sand is toxic to you. So the VBE will be having this gentle extraction of air inside that small box. However, this very fine sand is stable. It does not go anywhere. So the VBE has a soft, steady airflow that pushes that sand toxicity away from you, while keeping it in place to preventing it from floating anywhere around you. So the airflow is smooth enough. It doesn't scatter the sand, allowing you to handle the tiny amounts precisely. So just like how the BBE would keep HPAPI contained while letting operator to weigh in microgram quantities. So,
that's actually a very nice comparison. All right, so thank you very much, Sheila. I actually learned so much from you about airflow and ventilation containment system. So thank you for sharing your knowledge with us, and to everybody who's watching, thank you very much, Sheila. All right, so now we understand why airflow and ventilation containment systems are very important, particularly in pharmaceutical and biopharmaceutical manufacturing. So if you want to know more about the full specifications of downflow boots and then the ventilated balance enclosures, visit www.lifesciences.com. And do not forget to subscribe to Inside the Sciences podcast to see more of our next episodes. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.